Greetings from Tokyo. My name is Daisuke Beppu, and I hope you are all having a really nice day today. I'd like to continue with my discussion of the films of the Criterion collection, DVDs and Blu-ray collection. And today is spine number 12. This is Spinal Tap. So, This is Spinal Tap is a film directed by Rob Reiner, and this is from 1984. It is a rock documentary or rockumentary, but more specifically, it is a mock documentary or mockumentary, and it is a film about a band, but it doesn't exist. It's called Spinal Tap, and we follow this band on its tour of the United States, and we have interviews with the bandmates when they're together or when they're apart, and we have little stories that take place about the band and about their exploits and things that are going so wrong along the way. And we hear their music and they're performing, and we see clips of the band actually performing on stage, and we see clips also from the band as they were shown on TV in the past, and how their look changed over the course of rock history. And that's it. That's the film. It's a rock mockumentary, and it is a comedy, and it is a work of fiction. The DVD, which is here, is out of print, unfortunately, but it is, I think, fairly easy to get. Let's see. It's a double-sided disc, so you have on side one you have the film itself, and you also have two audio commentary tracks. So there's one by Christopher Guest and Michael McKean and Harry Shearer, and there's the other one by Rob Reiner and producer Karen Murphy and editors Robert Layton and Kent Beta. So they are both very interesting. I've listened to both of them, and they're both excellent. And then the second side of the disc is the features. So we have 2 hours of bonus material, including original industry and theatrical trailers, 20-minute demo reel, Spinal Tap: The Final Tour, and promotional shorts, Heavy Metal Memories, and Hellhole. And then the cutting room floor, more than 1 hour of deleted scenes, abandoned subplots, and alternate takes. So this is a kind of a magical comedy film from my point of view. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to turn this video off and just find it and watch it, because it is quite extraordinary. It is quite extraordinary as a comedy. It is, well, anyway, just watch it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Just watch it and be surprised and be amazed and be prepared to laugh a lot. And when you've finished watching it, you can come back to this video at any time, and I'd be very happy to continue this discussion with you about This is Spinal Tap. Now that you're here, my friends, I'm assuming that you've seen the film, or you know, or you don't mind being spoiled by it. So I'd like to say that it is a film that I admit I came to it rather late, actually. I was maybe in my mid-20s or so, so I had left college, and so I watched it, and I admit I didn't quite get all the jokes, because, as you know, there are so many jokes that are going on, and it's hard to keep track of all of them. And so I think this is a film that merits multiple viewings. And when you watch it more, I feel this way every time I watch it. I always feel like I catch something new, and I'm always quite impressed. You know, I think very recently I watched it again. Maybe it was several months ago, and I was trying to focus in on the lyrics of the songs, more or less, and there were some real there are some real gems here. You know, of course, there's the great you know what I want, give me some money, GSM. And I think that's a real classic, but there are some other great ones. You know, there's the song where they're talking about butts, and so what is it, my baby fits me like a flesh tuxedo, and I'd like to sink her with my pink torpedo. I don't know if I don't know if I can show this to my kids, but I mean, it's very clever in that you know, the more you dig into it, the more you realize that what they're talking about is really quite insanely twisted stuff, and it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You know, I loved where you could see herpes sores on Christopher Guest's face and Michael McKean's face, and they're unexplained in the final cut. Apparently, there is a subplot in which the herpes sores were going to be explained fully, but I don't think it's included in the final cut. All we get is just random shots of them having these sores, and it's just wonderful. And you have this lovely through line of the band as it's having this tour in U.S. and you're right, the tour which has quite a high number of young boys in the audience. And what is it? The tour is failing because the venues aren't being sold out, and there are times when some shows need to be canceled. So, for instance, they had to cancel the Boston gig, and you know. But don't worry about Boston. You know, it's not a big college town, so it's just a wonderful thing to just all these things that are coming at lightning speed. You just have to catch as many of them as possible, and if you don't catch them all, you just have to watch the film again and just try to watch and catch as many things as possible, right? As Billy Crystal says, you know, mime is money. I do also love the links that it has to real-life rock bands. You know, I think there's some Rolling Stones in there, but you know, I'm a huge Beatles fan, and I see a lot of the Beatles story that's being parodied here, and I really appreciate that, and I admire that very much. So you have the four, and you have the drummer, which is always the one that gets the least amount of attention here, because each of the drummers seems to die, so they just have to replace them. You know, it has been known, right, for people to just suddenly spontaneously combust. So so I like that kind of makeup, and you've got the whole the wonderful relationship between Christopher Guest and Michael McKean. There's a really nice Lennon and McCartney vibe there, and there's even a nice split between them once the Yoko Ono character comes in and drives a wedge between their friendship and sort of drives the band further into the ground. So there's a lovely element to that, and there's a great their album, right? It was it was deemed too offensive by the record producer, so or the distributor, so they had to instead opt for a pure black cover. I mean, it worked for the Beatles, right? If you had a white cover, so why can't it work for Spinal Tap? You know, especially if they have to sell the records at Walmart. So, so you've got the black album here as opposed to the white album by the Beatles. As I say, there are just so many gems here, and I think, to be perfectly honest, you know, there's the film is, I think, most famous for the Christopher Guest lines about, you know, turning it up to 11. That's now become part of it's become part of the general English idiom, I think, you know, turning up to 11. I think people know that meaning, and they've heard that without necessarily seeing the film. So it just shows how powerful the effect of this film is. It's so wide-reaching. But I would dare say that as much as I love that scene, I think there are so many other scenes that I really love more than that. I think Rob Reiner as the man who's bringing this all together, right? I think he's a real comic genius, and he brought all these elements together in a way that I think is seamless. It feels at times as a real, true faux documentary, you know, with like a shaky camera, and you have interviews. But then there are moments when it seamlessly becomes a film, you know, because you see cuts, over the shoulder cuts as two people are talking in the scene, so cut and then cut and cut, and so I think that has that's a really nice invisible blending of film styles. You know, it is of course meant to be a mockumentary, a rock documentary, so it has that feel of a documentary, and it has a kind of Let It Be documentary type feel. But then it suddenly switches, well, not suddenly, quite invisibly switches to a more traditional storytelling technique in terms of editing, and then interspersed with that, you have the great performances, the live show performances, and so I think that helps to make the transitions to a more traditional form of filming, storytelling technique to be much more seamless, which is a real credit to the film. Oh, incidentally, of course, Harry Shearer is just brilliant. I love that moment when he just the thing won't open during the performance, and when it does, the song's over, and he's supposed to go back into the thing, but he doesn't. And there's close-ups of Harry Shearer's groin in many places, so it's really quite an interesting film indeed, with a lot of disparate elements that come together in a whole hodgepodge of comic genius, if I do say so myself. Yes, so and kudos, of course, go to Christopher Guest and Michael McKean especially, and Harry Shearer, of course. I think they form a nice blend of creativity and stupidity. And there is a nice volatility, a comic volatility that they all bring. And I love how they have slightly different comedic techniques. You know, Harry Shearer has a kind of zoned out look, and he is very kind of in the background, so to speak, but he has so much, there's so much physical comedy, I think, that he's employing, I think, relatively speaking. And then we have Christopher Guest, who has that kind of glazed, zoned out thing, but everything is all about him, and he's so, you know, he's so focused on certain things that he doesn't realize when other people are talking, so he just talks over people or just doesn't listen. You know, of course things are sexy, you know, sexist or something like that, or he's worried about the size of food and all that. So and then Michael McKean has a more, right, he is the leader, right, so he has more of a I think maybe a kind of a general comedic presence, but I really love that relationship between the two of them, and there's a real kind of a nostalgia that they do when they're recalling the first song that they ever performed, they wrote together, and then when they break up, and then when they try to reconcile when the news hits them about how you know, they've become popular in Japan. Yay Tokyo. So And then there's a kind of reconciliation. So I'm so kind of moved by the acting here. I think there's a wonderful scope of comedic timing and comedic styles here. But really the performances and the character relationships are really so endearing and so rich and quite moving. In some places, you know, you really feel the genuineness of these characters, and it's even brilliant. It's brilliant when you think that these are all fake. They're all fiction. These are fictionalized accounts. So I am quite impressed with this film. Indeed, as an overall package, it is quite sterling. Okay, my friends, let me end it there, and I will. I guess because I feel like if I want to talk more about this film, I think I should. It's hard because I just want to talk about all these lines. So I think if I did that, I'd be here forever. So let me just stop there, and I will let you go. I think the next film in the Criterion Collection journey, as it were, is going to be Spine number 13. And I believe spine number 13 is The Silence of the Lambs. So won't you join me for a discussion of that very interesting film, The Silence of the Lambs? In the meantime, my friends, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I'll be very happy to address them to the best of my ability. Okay, my friends, until we meet again, cheers.